Code lines raced across the screen. "This is impossible! Who could launch such an advanced attack?" shouted the IT chief. Elena, sitting in the corner, looked at the screen and murmured one word: Nightshade. Everyone in the room froze. Only those who knew the legendary Ghost Protocol operation would recognize that code name. The IT department at Fort Harrison Military Base was wrapped in the typical silence of a Monday morning. Neon lights illuminated colorful monitors, while the monotonous hum of server fans filled the corridors. This was the brain center of modern warfare, but nobody thought about it that way. For most, this was just where computer repair people worked. Elena Vasquez, 48 years old, sat at the oldest desk in the far corner of the department. Her thick-framed glasses, gray hair pulled into a tight bun, and faded blue IT coveralls gave her the appearance of an ordinary technician. She was working on an old hard drive with a screwdriver in her hand. At least, that's how it appeared. Elena's story had begun 15 years ago in a very different world. Back then, she was Dr. Elena Vasquez, CIA cyber warfare specialist working on projects that officially didn't exist. Now, she manually repaired hardware that younger specialists considered beneath them. In reality, Elena was using the department's most advanced terminal. But nobody noticed this, because everyone knew her as Old Technician Elena, someone who fixed electrical problems, connected cables, and repaired old equipment. Elena had deliberately cultivated this image over 15 years. She wore outdated clothes, spoke in simple terms about technology, and never volunteered information about modern systems. She'd become invisible in plain sight, a skill she'd learned during her CIA days, though for very different purposes. At the other end of the department, next-generation IT specialists worked on cutting-edge workstations. Jake Morrison, 26, MIT graduate, saw himself as the department's star. Tyler Chen, 24, Stanford alumnus, considered himself an expert in cybersecurity. Marcus Reed, 28, had 3 different certifications and constantly talked about new tools. "Aunt Elena's pulling cables again," Jake snickered, pointing Elena out to his friends. "Trying to solve 21st century problems with 20th century technology," Tyler laughed. "Last week I offered to teach her Python. She said, 'I'm just hardware.' Doesn't understand software, apparently." Marcus shook his head. "People that age can't adapt. Cloud computing, AI, machine learning. They're too old to grasp these concepts." Elena acted as if she hadn't heard any of it. But she'd heard every word. She'd been hearing the same things for 15 years. Young, talented, modern technology experts looking down on the old technician aunt. What they didn't know was that Elena had been coding before any of them were born. She'd written her first program at 12, hacked her high school's network at 15, and developed encryption algorithms that were still classified by the NSA. This was her choice. 15 years ago, Elena worked in the CIA's most classified cyber unit. Codename Nightshade. She was the unit's technical leader, the youngest female cyber warfare specialist in agency history. Then one day, everything changed. During Operation Ghost Protocol against China, the cyber weapon Elena had developed spiraled out of control. Hospital systems in Shanghai crashed. 3 patients died when life support systems failed. Elena had created a weapon meant to protect America, but instead had blood on its hands. Elena resigned that day, hid her identity, and began working as an ordinary IT technician. Guilt and responsibility had driven her away from her past. She chose Fort Harrison because it was small, isolated, and unlikely to attract attention from anyone who might recognize her. For 15 years, she'd lived with the knowledge that her code had killed innocent people. Every day, she chose simple tasks, fixing hardware, replacing cables, updating basic software, as a form of penance. But today, her past would find her. At 10:47 a.m., all computer systems at Fort Harrison suddenly began to slow down. At first, nobody noticed. A few minutes later, alarm sounds began ringing in the main server room. Elena immediately noticed the change. After 15 years of monitoring networks, she could sense irregularities that others missed. The pattern of network traffic was wrong, too symmetrical, too organized. This wasn't random system slowdown. This was reconnaissance. "What's happening?" Jake shouted, looking at the performance charts on his terminal. His 3 monitors showed cascading performance drops across different systems. Tyler was monitoring the data flowing across his screen, his fingers flying across his mechanical keyboard. Traffic is abnormal. It's like someone is probing our systems. But the signature is weird. It's not showing up in our standard detection tools. Marcus opened the security panel, his multiple certifications finally proving useful. Abnormal activity on the firewall. This isn't normal script kiddie stuff. This is sophisticated, professional grade. Chief David Park is 45, an experienced manager who'd worked his way up from help desk technician to department head, came running from his office. His coffee mug was still in his hand, forgotten in the urgency. "What's the situation?" "Unknown," Jake said, starting to sweat. His confidence was evaporating as he realized his expensive equipment and Ivy League education weren't helping him understand what was happening. "Something's trying to get into our network, but we can't identify the attack vector. It's like nothing I've seen before." Elena watched from her corner as the 3 young specialists tried every tool in their arsenal. They ran vulnerability scans, checked intrusion detection logs, analyzed network packets. Everything they tried revealed the same thing. Something was systematically mapping their network infrastructure, but using techniques that weren't in any textbook. Tyler's voice carried an edge of panic. "I'm seeing lateral movement patterns that suggest the attacker already has a foothold inside our perimeter, but I can't find the entry point." Marcus was scrolling through alerts on his screen. Multiple systems are reporting anomalous behavior, but nothing's triggering our automated defenses. It's like the attack is invisible to our security tools. Just then, all screens turned red. Warning messages began appearing. Unauthorized access. Detected defense systems compromised, initiating lockdown protocol. "My God," Park whispered, his coffee mug slipping from his nerveless fingers and shattering on the floor. "This is a cyber attack." Elena sat in her corner, quietly watching what was happening. She recognized the attack signature immediately. The lateral movement pattern, the way the intrusion avoided detection systems, the systematic network mapping. She'd seen this exact methodology before, in classified briefings, from an adversary she knew intimately. Jake was frantically hitting his keyboard, sweat beading on his forehead despite the air conditioning. "I'm trying to strengthen the firewall, but this attack is too complex. It's adapting to our countermeasures in real time." Tyler was attempting to trace on his second terminal, his hands shaking slightly. "I can't find the IP address. They're bouncing through multiple proxy servers, using stolen legitimate credentials. It's like we're fighting ghosts." Marcus was activating every security protocol he knew, drawing on knowledge from 3 different cybersecurity certifications. "I'm implementing DDoS protection, activating intrusion prevention systems, isolating critical network segments." But this attacker anticipated all of this. It's like they know our infrastructure better than we do. Park was panicking, reaching for the red phone that connected directly to Pentagon Cybersecurity Command. "We need to notify the Pentagon. We can't stop an attack of this level. This is beyond our capabilities." Elena slowly stood up. She'd been watching the attack unfold for 15 minutes, and now she understood exactly what they were facing. This wasn't a random cybercriminal or even a typical state-sponsored hacking group. This was Crimson Dragon, and they were using techniques she'd helped develop during her CIA days. She walked to her terminal, her real terminal, hidden beneath layers of innocuous applications. She began examining the code on the screen with eyes that had seen this exact attack methodology in classified CIA briefings. Code lines were flowing rapidly across her screen. Elena's trained eye could read the attack pattern like a familiar language. The attacker was very skilled, using very advanced techniques. But Elena had invented some of these techniques. "This is impossible," Park shouted, looking at the main screen where network diagrams showed red intrusion markers spreading through their systems like a virus. "Who could launch such an advanced attack? This level of expertise only exists in state-level hacker groups." Elena looked closer at the code structure, her mind automatically analyzing the attack vectors, the payload delivery mechanisms, the evasion techniques. She saw a pattern she recognized, not just in the methodology, but in the specific implementation details. A digital signature as unique as a fingerprint. "Nightshade," she murmured, not loud enough for anyone to hear. But Tyler, with his enhanced hearing developed through years of listening for subtle system sounds, had caught it. "What did you say?" Elena repeated louder. "Nightshade." Everyone in the room froze. Park looked at Elena with confusion and growing concern. "What does Nightshade mean? Is that some kind of virus signature?" "It's not a virus," Elena said calmly, her voice carrying an authority that hadn't been there moments before. "It's the code name of the group launching this attack. I recognize the attack methodology from the Ghost Protocol operation." Jake looked at Elena in amazement, seeing her in a completely new light. "What's Ghost Protocol? And how do you know about classified operations?" Instead of answering immediately, Elena walked to her terminal. She began typing commands that made the young specialist's eyes widen. Her fingers moved with impossible speed and precision, executing system commands they'd never seen before. The moment her fingers touched the keyboard, everything changed. Elena's hands began moving at 120 words per minute, but more importantly, every keystroke was purposeful, every command exactly what was needed. Code lines started flowing at light speed across the screen. Not random commands, but a coordinated defensive strategy. "What are you doing?" Tyler asked, his eyes wide as saucers. "Those aren't standard IT protocols. That's advanced penetration testing methodology." "Counterattack," Elena said, without taking her eyes off the screen. Her voice had changed completely. Gone was the hesitant tone of the old technician, replaced by the crisp authority of someone who'd commanded cyber warfare operations. Jake couldn't believe what he was seeing. How do you know these things? These aren't tools we use for basic IT support. This is military-grade cyber warfare software." Elena paused for a moment, her hands still poised over the keyboard. She turned around to face the three young men who'd spent years dismissing her as irrelevant. "Because I developed this attack structure 15 years ago." Silence. Complete, total silence. Everyone in the room was staring at Elena. Old technician Elena was gone, as if she'd never existed. Someone completely different had taken her place, someone with the bearing of authority, the confidence of expertise, and the calm demeanor of someone who'd faced far worse crises than this. "Who are you?" Marcus whispered, his voice barely audible. Elena turned back to the screen, her fingers already resuming their rapid work. "Dr. Elena Vasquez, former technical director, CIA Cyber Warfare Division, codename Nightshade. And right now, we don't have time for a full briefing." She pulled up a terminal window that none of them had seen before. It was running on a hidden partition of her computer, protected by military-grade encryption. The interface was unlike anything they had ever encountered, sleek, minimalist, with real-time data feeds from government intelligence networks. "We don't have time to talk now," Elena continued, her voice crisp with urgency. "This attack is just the beginning. They're using it as a distraction while they try to reach the real target." "What target?" Park asked, his voice hoarse with shock. Elena's fingers paused over the keyboard for just a moment. "Nuclear launch codes." Everyone in the room held their breath. The temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Elena continued working rapidly, her hands moving across the keyboard with the precision of a concert pianist. "This attack pattern belongs to Crimson Dragon Group, Chinese state-sponsored hacker collective operating out of Shanghai. They've been dormant for 15 years, but they're using updated versions of techniques I helped develop." "Where were you 15 years ago?" Jake asked, his voice small and uncertain. "CIA Cyber Warfare Unit," Elena said without missing a keystroke. "Building weapons you can't imagine and fighting wars that officially never happened. My codename was Nightshade." Tyler's mouth fell open. You're that Nightshade? The one from the classified briefings? We studied your techniques at Stanford, but they told us you were just a legend." Elena nodded grimly, her eyes never leaving the screen. "I led the team that ran the Ghost Protocol operation against Crimson Dragon. We fought a cyber war that lasted 6 months. We won, but the cost was too heavy." Marcus found his voice. "What kind of cost?" Elena's hands paused for a fraction of a second, the first sign of vulnerability she'd shown. "Innocent people were harmed. The cyber weapon I developed went out of control. Hospital systems in Shanghai crashed. 3 patients died because their life support systems failed." Her voice carried the weight of 15 years of guilt. "Since that day, I left this work behind." Park asked in amazement. "Then why are you working here as a technician?" "Because I didn't want to cause harm anymore," Elena said simply. "I just wanted to repair things instead of breaking them, to build instead of destroy. But it seems the past has found me." A new warning appeared on the screen, larger and more urgent than before. Final stage initiated. Nuclear systems access attempted. DEFCON 2. Authorization required. My God, Park whispered, understanding the implications. They're trying to access nuclear launch systems. If they succeed, Elena's fingers moved even faster, her screen now showing multiple data streams, code windows, and network diagnostics simultaneously. Jake, Tyler, Marcus, all of you listen to me. All three young men focused on Elena with laser intensity. This is real military cyber warfare, Elena said, her voice carrying command authority for the first time in 15 years. Jake, I need you on the left terminal. Activate the defensive firewall protocols, but not the standard ones. I'm sending you access to level 7 military-grade defensive systems. Tyler, middle terminal. Start running traces on the attack vectors, but use the advanced NSA toolkit I'm uploading to your system. Marcus, right terminal. Prepare our backup systems and implement the fail-safe protocols I'm authorizing. But how do we... Jake started, overwhelmed by the complexity of what she was asking. Follow my lead, Elena said firmly. You're all talented engineers. You can do this. Jake, your MIT background in network architecture is exactly what we need for defensive coordination. Tyler, your Stanford penetration testing experience will help you understand the attack patterns. Marcus, your practical infrastructure knowledge is crucial for maintaining our defensive perimeter. For the first time, Elena was speaking to them not as inferiors, but as professional colleagues. The change in her tone was remarkable. Gone was any trace of the hesitant technician, replaced by someone who clearly had extensive experience commanding technical teams under extreme pressure. Now, Elena shouted, and the three young men immediately ran to their terminals. Elena began the most complex cyber operation of her career. On her main terminal, she was simultaneously blocking the attackers' entry routes, analyzing their methodologies, and preparing her own counterattack software. Her screen showed a three-dimensional network visualization that looked like something from a science fiction movie, but this was real-time display of Fort Harrison's network infrastructure under assault. Elena, Park said, his voice barely steady. What happens if you don't succeed? I must succeed, Elena said, her eyes never leaving the screen. Because if they reach the nuclear authorization codes, it's not just this base that's in danger. They could potentially access command systems for nuclear submarines, missile silos across the Midwest, and strategic bomber command codes. We're talking about the ability to trigger a nuclear incident that could be blamed on the United States. The scope of the threat was becoming clear to everyone in the room. This wasn't just a cyber attack on a military base. This was potentially an act of war. 10 minutes passed. Elena worked non-stop, coordinating her team while simultaneously engaging in direct cyber combat with some of the world's most sophisticated hackers. Jake, Tyler, and Marcus followed her instructions with increasing confidence, finally seeing Elena's true capabilities. How can you type so fast? Tyler asked in wonder, watching Elena's hands move across the keyboard in a blur of motion. 15 years of experience in cyber warfare, Elena said, not slowing down for even a moment. When you're fighting for national security, speed isn't just important. It's the difference between life and death. Milliseconds matter when you're preventing nuclear catastrophe. Tyler was running traces on multiple attack vectors simultaneously, using NSA tools he'd never known existed. Elena, I'm seeing something. The attack isn't just coming from Shanghai. There are secondary nodes in Moscow and Tehran. This is a coordinated international operation. Elena's expression darkened. That confirms it. This isn't just Crimson Dragon. They're working with other state-sponsored groups, Russia's Cozy Bear and Iran's APT-33. This is a coalition cyber attack. Something appeared on Marcus's screen that made his eyes widen. Elena, I found something important! Elena glanced at Marcus's screen while maintaining her primary operation. Excellent work! You've identified their backup infiltration routes. Jake, how's the defensive perimeter holding? The firewall's holding, but I can see they're testing different attack vectors, Jake reported, his confidence growing as he worked with tools he'd only dreamed of accessing. They're trying to overwhelm our defenses with simultaneous attacks from multiple angles. Expected, Elena said calmly. Tyler, how's the trace coming? Complex routing through multiple countries, But I'm following the data streams back to their sources, Tyler said, his Stanford training finally proving its worth. Got it. Primary command node is definitely Shanghai, but there's a command structure that includes Moscow and Tehran. This is bigger than we thought. Exactly as I predicted, Elena said grimly. This is coordinated cyber warfare between multiple hostile nations. They're not just after our nuclear codes. They want to create an international incident. Elena moved to the final phase of her counterattack. Now everyone step back. This next part requires complete concentration. Why? Jake asked, though he was already moving away from the terminals. Because now I'm not just defending, Elena said, her voice carrying an edge they hadn't heard before. I'm going to attack them back. And this is dangerous territory. The code Elena was about to execute wasn't a simple defensive operation. This was an offensive cyber weapon, advanced technology she'd developed 15 years ago during her CIA days, then locked away after the Ghost Protocol disaster. She'd sworn never to use it again, but now there was no choice. Elena, Park said worriedly, is this legal? Are you authorized to launch cyber attacks against foreign nations? Elena's hands paused over the keyboard. In DEFCON 2 situations, when nuclear systems are under direct threat, emergency protocols authorize necessary defensive actions. I still have dormant clearance that activates under these conditions. She looked at Park directly. We'll explain everything to the Pentagon afterward. Right now, 3 nuclear powers are trying to steal our launch codes. Elena began typing the final sequence of commands. On her screen, Nightshade Protocol Activated appeared in red letters. 5 seconds later, all of the attacker's systems crashed simultaneously. Crimson Dragon Neutralized appeared on the screen, followed by Cozy Bear Neutralized and App33 Neutralized. Silence. Complete, awed silence. Elena turned around. Threat neutralized. Jake, Tyler, and Marcus were looking at Elena with a mixture of amazement, respect, and fear. They no longer saw Technician Elena, but CIA Operative Nightshade. Wow, Jake whispered. You really are. Yes, Elena said. I've been here for 15 years, watching young, talented technology experts like you. You learn, you develop. While I try to make peace with my past, Tyler stepped forward. Elena, I'm sorry for looking down on you all these years. Marcus nodded. We didn't know anything, apparently. Jake approached Elena. Would you teach us? Real cyber warfare? Elena smiled. For the first time in 15 years, it was a real smile. Maybe, but first we need to make statements to the FBI. 2 hours later, the FBI Cybercrimes Unit had arrived at Fort Harrison. Agent Sarah Collins was personally leading the investigation. Elena had explained the entire operation in detail. Her old CIA clearances were reactivated, and the Ghost Protocol file was reopened. Agent Collins was talking with Elena. Dr. Vasquez, we need your skills again. Elena shook her head. I don't do active operations anymore. Not active operations? Training. We want to establish a new program for developing the next generation of cyber defense specialists, and you're the best person for that job. Elena looked at Jake, Tyler, and Marcus. Young, eager, open to learning. Maybe she could teach them, but this time, the right way. I accept, Elena said, but I have one condition. What is it? These 3 specialists will be on my team. I'll train them myself. Collins smiled. Accepted. 3 months later, the Fort Harrison IT department had completely changed. Elena was no longer the old technician, but the cybersecurity training leader. Jake, Tyler, and Marcus were learning next-generation defensive cyber warfare techniques under her guidance. Jake now addressed Elena as Professor. Elena, what topic will we cover today? Ethical hacking, Elena said, and how to close security vulnerabilities. Tyler asked, what about offensive operations? Elena looked with a serious expression. Offensive operations are only a last resort, and only to protect innocent people. Remember, our job is to protect, not to destroy. Marcus nodded. We understand, Professor. Elena sat at the terminal. Now I'll teach you advanced encryption techniques. But first tell me, why is security important? Jake answered, because in the wrong hands, technology can become a weapon. Correct, Elena said, and our mission is to use technology for the benefit of humanity. 1 year later, the team Elena had trained had won an award at the Pentagon. They had won the Best Cybersecurity Team of the Year award. At the ceremony, Elena was on stage with Jake, Tyler, and Marcus. "You are the ones who deserve this award," Elena said into the microphone, "because the true power of technology lies in the character of the people who use it." Jake came to the stage. "This award isn't just ours. It also belongs to our teacher, Elena Vasquez, who taught us everything. She didn't just teach us how to code, but how to take responsibility." Tyler added, 15 years ago she made a mistake, but she learned from that mistake and taught us. Mistakes make us stronger if we learn from them." Marcus said the final words. "Our teacher, Elena, gave us the most important lesson. The most powerful technology gains meaning when combined with human values." Elena's eyes were filled with tears. The regret that had lasted 15 years had finally found meaning. Today, Elena still works at Fort Harrison, but she's no longer the dismissed technician aunt. She's known as the respected cybersecurity legend. On her office wall hangs a photo from the Ghost Protocol period, but next to it is something more important. A graduation photo taken with Jake, Tyler, and Marcus. For Elena, the greatest success wasn't making up for past mistakes, but ensuring the next generation would be better. What does this story teach you? Have you ever discovered that someone ordinary you met actually had an extraordinary past? Maybe that quiet IT technician is a former hacker. Maybe that elderly accountant was a CIA analyst. Maybe that janitor is a former engineer. Share your experiences in the comments. Have you ever realized you misjudged someone? And if you think stories of hidden heroes like this deserve to be heard, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications, because the greatest experts sometimes live among us in the most humble ways. Just like Elena Vasquez. In our next video, we'll tell the story of another hidden hero. Until we meet again.